Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Sailing Parlay Revival. This week we're going to try uncover the truth about what really happened to a 50-meter superyacht called the Blue Gold, which got washed up onto a reef here in Vanuatu during Cyclone Pam.
So there's people up there guarding it now because people are trying to steal things off it and whatnot.
And we will attempt to find out whether or not there's a chance of her getting salvaged or not. As most of you know, my boat is a hurricane-damaged catamaran, which was deemed a constructive total loss, but we rebuilt her and have done around 40,000 miles around the world so far. I also worked for a company called Husky Salvage for a while in the BVIs, so salvaging boats is something that I have a little bit of experience in. I've also worked for 3 seasons as chief engineer on a similar super yacht called the Parsifal 3, so I understand the mechanics behind a vessel of this size, so I'm dying to find out the details around this disaster.
Once upon a time was a stunning super yacht, so we'll see what's left of it now.
But before we left Port Vila, we decided to do some shopping for things that we could give to the local communities that we were going to visit, because the further north we went, the more isolated we were going to be.
We tried to think of some gifts that were meaningful and worthwhile, and so we bought some shovels, because they all garden. We bought some big jugs for water. We bought a few of these woks so they could all cook around the fire together, and bunch of different fishing setups. Anything that they can't get off a shelf up there is very much appreciated. And we've got a whole bunch of old clothes. That's quite a shortage up there apparently, and even a t-shirt goes a long way. So
this was also the last time that we would be able to provision for ourselves for a while, so we topped up on some of the essentials that would be hard to come by up north.
Lindo's happy about that. They had a very fancy selection, but they had a kangaroo dog biscuit.
did you try some?
Not my flavor.
We had also made a couple of friends in Port Vila. One was Leon, who is actually now joining his crew to sail up to Espiritu Santo with us, where he had actually just bought some land sight unseen, so was looking for a ride up north. The other is Nixon, who was actually the captain of the Blue Gold when it ended up on the reef, who would be able to provide crucial information in telling the story of what actually happened on that fateful day. Nixon hasn't been back to the super yacht in over a year, so he himself was excited to see the state of the vessel that he had worked on for 6 years.
Nixon, you were the captain when it ran aground here.
Yes, I was start working in Blue Gold 2009.
2009, you started working on it.
It's been a very nice time spending a time on the sport. I think it's a nice sport, but it needs to be keep moving.
And it went up on the reef in 2015. Yeah. And Cyclone Pam.
The Cyclone Pam, yes. As far as I was on the boat during that night, once when we get very close to the land, there's only 3 waves. The first wave picked us up, like I would say it's about 5-meter waves just in the harbor. Pick us up, put it up right in there in the reef. The second and the third was right where we are now.
Wow.
It's only 3 waves. And it was like we was banging everywhere. Boom, 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 and boom. It was banging against, and I hit my reef. So it was really, really. And then at that time I thought, okay, that's the end of us. But then I told the crew members that we're not going to go anywhere. Boat is quite big enough. We can save inside as long as we stay on the roof somewhere. We'll be safe until the cyclone is over.
Right.
Yeah.
And so everybody just sort of huddled together and just waited it out.
Yeah. So I give all the life jacket to the crew members, and I told them we have to stay up in the bridge until the wind is over. Early in the morning they thought we all die, but then people come out and we come out from the boat. So we're happy that we're still alive.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the second biggest storm in Vanuatu. That Vanuatu ever faced a very, very big storm. This is the second biggest one in Vanuatu.
All right.
That lots of things get damaged.
How do you think it's going to feel going back onto Blue Gold?
Very exciting.
Exciting?
At the moment, back in Blue Gold, they have already done the Salvage street line, but then there's no luck. I think how they did it is not correctly. They need a real Salvages to come and take the boat out. So
right.
That's the whole thing about it.
So the government owns Blue Gold now?
At the moment, that's what I heard so far, because I haven't been coming to the outside of the island for quite some time. So
right. Okay.
Once when we get there, we have to get more information about
wow.
what's going on.
This is super exciting.
So without further ado, we picked up the anchor to go find the Blue Gold, whose resting place was up in Havannah, which is towards the northern end of Efate Island here in Vanuatu.
We're leaving just as we arrived, in the rain.
It was actually a beautiful sail that day, and before too long we were making our way through the Bay of Havannah, where the Blue Gold had been anchored once upon a time. For Nixon, this was taking him on a trip down memory lane, and as the captain at the time, he had tried to do everything he could to prevent the Blue Gold from ending up on the reef. But Mother Nature had different plans, as the 370-ton Superyacht got dragged through the anchorage towards the reef on the other side of the bay.
You were anchored just over here.
We were anchored just right up here.
So when the cyclone hit, the wind was going that way?
Yeah, when the cyclone starts, it comes from the north.
Yeah.
And then when the direction of the cyclone changes into south direction, then it was right over there that the wind pushes towards the side of here.
And so your anchors were holding at the start?
We had two anchors out. We had two anchors out. Look at anchors like very, very big anchors. There's 200 meters port and starboard anchors, 200 meter long chains. And then we drop everything out. Make sure the anchors are drowned in the mud, because over here is muddy holding. So we feel that we're secure enough that we can be a hawk, we can fight against the wind. Then we was anchored in about when the wind gets really, really strong. The Navy boat cruises around, throwing around the harbor, and then it hits the car, it's down one side, and then we had only one anchor on, and then we left.
And the patrol boat hit your port side and it broke the chain?
Broke the chain. And then I can hear it, that there's something stripping out. And then at that time, then we couldn't hold anymore. We had only one anchor on. We ended up at the reef.
You didn't have time to start the engine and try drive against the wind?
The engine is on. The engine is on. Tried to put, but the wind, the force of the wind is really, really strong.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then you ended up all the way over there?
We ended up all the way over there.
Wow. All right, let's try to get closer.
Okay.
So we drove from where the Blue Gold had been anchored, following the exact same track that she had dragged all the way along to the other side of the bay. This was a total of 1 nautical mile, or 1.85 kilometers. This seems like a long way, but with one anchor completely broken away and the other one not holding, it was a matter of minutes before she collided with the reef in the early hours of that morning. As Nixon mentioned, there were 3 predominant storm surges that pushed her high and dry onto the reef, which were formed from the 270 km/h winds that Cyclone Pam had delivered.
The unrelenting storm leaving a trail of utter destruction in its path. Homes flattened, buildings reduced to rubble.
This cyclone was the second most intense storm ever recorded in the South Pacific and is considered the worst natural disaster in the history of Vanuatu.
Yeah, it's really sad when the roof came out. We just couldn't do anything.
She formed just east of the Solomon Islands and travelled in a southbound direction, reaching Category 5 status and destroying everything in her path. The storm tragically took the lives of 15 people, but the crew of Blue Gold were lucky to walk away with theirs. The previous engineer of Blue Gold is actually a friend of a friend, and after speaking with him, he told me that she was as solid as they come, and had once upon a time circumnavigated the entire globe, and had actually been in 2 hurricanes in the past. Even her story before the cyclone was riddled with scandal, as the owner had been convicted of fraud, and the boat had actually been seized in Vanuatu for a while for unpaid taxes. All that aside, I've worked on superyachts on and off for 17 years, and the sight of this once luxurious multi-million-dollar boat helplessly abandoned on the reef was a lot to take in. It had been 9 years since the disaster happened, and partly due to her location and lack of resources, but also through alleged inexperience, the salvage attempts on this ship have been unsuccessful on more than one occasion.
The crazy thing about this is that just not long ago, a 50-meter superyacht sank in Palermo in Sicily.
These are the final moments of the superyacht battered by the wind off the coast of Sicily, its mast swinging in the storm.
One man has died and 6 others, including 4 British tourists, are missing after a yacht capsized and sank in an early morning storm.
It's thought the yacht may have been caught in what's known as a waterspout, a tornado which hits over water rather than land.
All we saw were cushions and the rest of the boat which had sunk.
It's hard for me to understand how that boat sank. There's a lot more information slowly coming out about it, but devastated for the people that have lost their lives. That is the sister ship of the below deck boat that I work on. It's a 56 metre Perini Navy, so I know the boat well, and for it to go down, they're saying from a water spout. Yeah, crazy. And here we are looking at one right here, 50 metres this thing is, built in 1982. It's the only sail super yacht that the shipyard Benetti built. They're in Italy, and I've been on many of the motor yachts, but this one right here is the only sailing super yacht that they ever made. And I heard that they sold the plans to it to Perini Navi, who ended up building all the Perini Navis that we know of.
Because of my experience on super yachts, I was asked to give my opinion on the sinking of the Bayesian, which I have been reluctant to do without having been there. There were 22 people on that boat, and 7 people tragically lost their lives. So for me or anyone else to make assumptions or even accusations is completely unfair to the crew, in my opinion. It was disappointing to see the CEO of the umbrella company of Perini Navi immediately accuse the captain of negligence before any evidence had been presented whatsoever in order to save face in the wake of such a tragic event. Anyway, much like the Bayesian, the Blue Gold also has a lifting keel. Her hull is made out of steel and is possibly the only saving grace if she's ever to be pulled off the reef into deeper water.
Wow. That keel must be sunk right deep in the sand, eh?
Yeah, we're gonna go for a free dive later.
Holy crap.
It was an unbelievably tragic sight, and it all made sense now about why she had never been able to be salvaged. She was so far up on the reef that the entire hull on the port side was completely out of the water, and the amount of horsepower required to move the 370-ton vessel would be extortionate. On the bright side though, her hull did appear to be intact, but we would later dive in and see for ourselves whether she had a chance to float again in her current state.
The bow is where the Navy motor boat just swing around, hit us right in the bow, you can see there.
And it broke this anchor chain, yeah?
This anchor chain, yes.
Wow.
Almost bang. Yeah.
Incredible.
I still couldn't believe what I was looking at. Her sails had been destroyed and her paint worn and overgrown with barnacles, but it almost seemed like with a fresh lick of paint and a little bit of TLC, she'd be back to her former glory again. Well, that's how it looked from the outside anyway.
It's really windy. We're at low tide now, but at high tide, these portholes are underwater. So they just came and they sealed them all up like this. They reckon it's dry inside at the moment, so we'll see what the bilges look like. We're just waiting to meet the chief before we go on it. Still not sure who owns this thing, but apparently the village does. I think this is the chief.
The chief was super friendly and gave us his blessings to go on the super yacht. As far as Nixon was aware, the village now owned the super yacht. But all of a sudden, things got very tense when a man who claimed to be the rightful owner of the Blue Gold showed up and forbid us from going on the boat.
Yet you bought it off the...
Doesn't matter where I got it from and how much I paid for it. It's no one's business.
Yeah.
I own it, that's it.
Yeah. Do you mind if we
no one's going on board.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
After a while, Derek started to warm up to us a little, as he realized we were not trying to get anything from him, or question how he had acquired the boat. Derek came to Vanuatu decades ago, and his wife is actually from the village right behind the boat. After speaking with quite a few of the locals in the area, it had become questionable as to whether he was actually the legitimate owner of the boat, but he was determined to get her off the reef regardless. He had the villagers working hard to dig a channel out from under the boat, who had actually made good progress, and all the digging was done by hand.
What's the current situation with the boat? You guys want it out of here, or?
Oh, well, she's not going to sit there forever.
Yeah. You guys working to dig it out?
Yes.
She's
almost ready to come out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We've had 2 attempts. She was up here somewhere at the front. She was here about another 9 meters closer to shore. She's gone back 9 meters.
Really?
Since January, but she's the small keel had been hooked on some big stones. She was buried, like 368 tons, huh?
Yeah.
She was buried underground, so the stones at the bottom of the baby keel had blocked it and the mother keel, but that's all been exposed now.
Right.
We've dug all that out, so they're free. And we're just going to put all the rollers in underneath for her to roll on, and then wait for the tugs and the airbags to come and lift her up a little bit, and then she'll roll off.
Oh wow, so it's close.
Oh yeah, very close. We might refit it. As you well know, it was the last of the Bonetti motor sailors.
Yeah.
In '84. So it's actually a classic, and the fact that it's sitting on the beach is a problem. But once she floats, once I get it floated again and stabilize her, and then start working on it, then we'll look at see what we're going to do in the future.
Very cool.
It should have come off yesterday, but we're not quite ready at the underneath. We're at the rudder at the moment. We've got a huge there's a huge stone there that's impeding work, which we're trying to get out. Once that we remove that stone, then we have a fairly good straight road back, not just for the mother keel but the baby keel underneath. That's where we are.
That looks super clear.
Wow.
That's from the back of the back of the mother keeler. So we've dug it right out, and we've got another week of digging probably, and then we'll start putting all the rollers in, preparing for flotation devices. This time she'll go.
Wow.
Guaranteed.
Bring it back to life, maybe.
I'm gonna bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no way. There's no way she's coming off and then she's going to sit there.
Yeah.
We will spend $1 million on it and revitalize her.
Very cool.
It's a lovely boat, mate.
Yeah.
So unbelievably, we happened to be here literally a week before they were going to attempt to get her off the reef for the 4th time. The channel was almost dug, and Derek had tugboats lined up to come drag her into the water on the next high tide. Derek suggested that we come back to witness the salvage operation with our own eyes, but as cyclone season was fast approaching, and the blue gold is a terrifying example of what can happen if one comes through, we were determined to continue our journey north to get out of the cyclone belt. Before leaving, we hopped into the water ourselves to see just how close she was to becoming free, but it all seemed fairly unbelievable that anything would be able to drag this monster of a boat out in the next week. And with a bit of damage control on the stern tubes and other openings through the hull, maybe, just maybe, she would actually float if they managed to pull her off the reef.
Has that been the story of the blue gold since it went up there? Is that the whole thing of who owns it and what happens to it and who can salvage it and people coming in? It sounds like it's been a complicated decade of things.
Yeah,
right?
well, when we grounded there in 2015, then I was with the boat for 6 years on the little island.
You lived on it?
I lived on the little island for 6 years with the boat. The owner wants me to be there. Then we pay rent every month to the village there. And then after that, after 6 years, the owner gave it away.
Do you think it's possible that the owner just gave it to Derek?
He doesn't give it directly to Derek. He gave it directly to the government. That's what I heard.
The boat will come off the reef next week, like Derek's saying?
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to come up either.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what the fate of the blue gold is. We saw under the keel was just a stainless steel bucket. Looks like they've just been scraping out with a bucket.
You know,
slowly.
The first idea that's been doing to the salvage is putting some logs of coconuts under the boat.
We saw them.
To drop the boat, which is very stupid.
We saw them.
Yeah.
They're still there.
Yeah. And then you imagine that heavy 360 tons with this coconut, and how possible would that heavy thing come out from the tuck out here and the tugboat can break it out? That's not possible.
They were trying to get it sideways? Or this way, backwards?
This way, backwards. Yeah.
Oh well, we'll be watching to see what happens.
Yeah.
But thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Yeah. You're very welcome.
You're a good man.
Yeah. I've been very pleased to come out today.
It's been fun, huh?
Yeah, it's lots of fun.
Good to see the boat again?
Yeah, good to see the boat after 1 year.
It's a shame we couldn't see inside, huh?
Yeah, it's really the same. It's really the same. If I would be still there, I would be still looking at the you go inside, you will see everything. Yeah.
So it was time for us to leave, but there were still so many unanswered questions about the mystery of the blue gold. But we were grateful to have the insights from Nixon, a man who was put in charge of a super yacht but ended up living sideways on it for 6 years while up on a reef to guard her for the owner.
See you guys. Thanks for the company. Do really appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon, eh? Bye.
Bye, Nixon.
Bye.
The blue gold was never salvaged off the reef that following week, and to this day remains shipwrecked on Mosso Island in Vanuatu. As she once was such a valuable vessel, there have been many hands trying to claim ownership of her over the years. But it's hard to imagine her fate even if she was ever salvaged, due to the amount of money that would have to be poured into the engineering systems alone just to get her moving again. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. Hit subscribe if you're new here, and we'll see you again same time next Sunday.